April is often known as the month of spring showers, at least in some hemispheres of the world. But I want May to be known as the month of horror worldwide. Hello, welcome to my channel. Another bibliophile reads. My name is Greg. Welcome to Horror Mayhem 2025. This is the third year for this horror-loving event. It was the brainchild of Scott and Becky Bryant. Unfortunately, Scott passed away in 2024. He was critically ill during May of last year, so he could not participate. But all the co-hosts of Horror Mayhem this year and the years before wanted to honor his memory and continue with Horror Mayhem. In previous years, we had lists of themes to hunt and peck and see if you could find, like vampires and ghosts and slashers. We're not having that sort of event this year for Horror Mayhem, but we have decided to go with a theme called Decades of Dread. And the idea of this is not to look for specific genre tropes, but to read across the decades. How many decades of horror stories can you read in the month of May? There is no limit. There is no punch list. It's do what you feel comfortable with. Now me, I'm going to go whole hog and try to overachieve in the decades. So I have a list of short stories from 1850 up to the 2020s, and I am going to try and read one short story from every decade. Will I succeed? I don't know. It is kind of an ambitious project, but it's only short stories. And some of these short stories are only 10 or 12 pages long. So I think I have a good shot at completing all the decades from the 1850s onwards. As a reader, as a co-host, you have your own choices to make. You may not want to be that ambitious, and that is okay. It's just what I am going to be trying to do. Now, the focus of Horror Mayhem is, of course, on shorter works of horror. The focus is on short stories or novels under 200 pages. I have a few choices that go over 200 pages, but that again is just me because I have some large TBRs with a number of horror books on it. There are over a dozen co-hosts this year, and I will list them in the description of this video. Let me start off with the books that I'm going to try to read for Horror Mayhem. Goddess of Filth by V.Castro. On a hot summer night, best friends try to have a seance where they want to communicate with an ancient Aztec goddess. It's supposed to be all in good fun, unless that seance actually communicates with an ancient Aztec goddess. This one looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fun, and I am going to be buddy reading it with Bad is Rad, one of my other co-hosts. I have this collection of short stories. Look at Our Holes, an anthology of voids and orifices, edited by Juan Valencia. You should know Juan Valencia if you watch horror YouTube videos. He is the host of Plagued by Vision, and this is the anthology. He edited it. And it has a number of short stories. Some of them are YouTube channels. MJ at Reading This Life has a story included in here. So these are some of the short stories that I will be reading for Horror Mayhem 2025, and these will count as my stories from the 2020s. On my Kindle, I'm going to be reading The Vessel by Adam Nevill. Adam Nevill is rising in my estimation of contemporary horror novelists. I have read 4 of his other books, and none of those 4 have been a disappointment. He is known as an author of folk horror novels. And in this one, a young mother struggling to raise her child alone takes a job caring for an elderly patient in a decrepit house. And of course, this house is going to probably contain something unusual. I have a feeling it may give off those burnt offering vibes, and I'm really looking forward to it. Scheduled to come in from my library sometime during the month of May is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a brand new novel about a vampire in the Old West, or so I have been told. I really enjoyed one of his previous novels, The Only Good Indians. So I do hope this library book comes in during the month of May. It is also a much longer book. I believe it is over 400 pages. So why not technically counting, because it's over 200, I'm still going to read it in the month of May if I get it. I have a number of audiobooks that I want to listen to in the month of May. The first is Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. I have read this book before, but that was about 20 years ago, so it's time for a re-listen. I also want to get Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapmen, another contemporary horror novel, and this one, I've been told, has a political edge to it because it features a news organization that may or may not be modeled after Fox News, and I guess it's a bone of contention with some readers. But 2 of his previous novels that I read, The Remaking and Whisper Down the Lane, were simply fantastic. So I also am looking forward to Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. And now on to my Decades of Dread project. I have listed a number of short stories from the 1850s up through the 1990s. The 2000s and the 2010s are still sort of up in the air, so I will be looking to my co-hosts for some suggestions of those 2 decades to see what stories I should pick. But let me tell you about some of the anthologies that I have selected. The Wimbourne Book of Victorian Ghost Stories, Volume 1, edited by Alastair Gunn. This is a collection of anthologies. There are, I believe, 25 or 26 volumes, all about Victorian ghost stories, because the Victorians loved their ghost stories. But Volume 1 is dedicated to women Victorian authors of ghost stories. I have The Greatest Ghost and Horror Stories Ever Written, volumes 1 to 7, all on my Kindle. It is about 4,500 pages long. That is a lot of horror and ghost stories, all of them in the public domain. For my physical books and anthologies, I will be selecting from Stalkers, edited by Ed Gorman. Alfred Hitchcock presents Stories for Late at Night. Foundations of Fear, edited by David G. Hartwell. Thomas Ligotti, Grimscribe, his first collection of short stories. Weird Tales, 32 Unearthed Terrors, a story from each year the classic horror and fantasy magazine was published. Sorry about that glare. Rivals of Weird Tales, 30 great fantasy and horror stories from the weird and fiction pulse. So those are my anthologies that I'm currently selecting from. I'm going to go ahead and list my potential decades of dread. This list is not set in stone. I am sure I will see some suggestions from other co-hosts or other viewers and other creators, and I may have to swap out a few of these short stories or just maybe add more to my reading list. I will just list the title and the author. The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell. The Haunted Organist of Hurly Burly by Rosa Milholland. The Ghost in the Captain Brown House by Harriet Beecher Stowe. The Body Snatcher by Robert Louis Stevenson. The Judge's House by Bram Stoker. The Willows by Arlington Blackwoods. The Spider by Hans Heinz Ehlers. Evolution Island by Edmund Hamilton. The Isle of the Torturers by Clark Ashton Smith. The Sound Machine by Roald Dahl. Death is a Dream by Robert Arthur. Longtooth by Edgar Pangborn. Duel by Richard Matheson. Lizard Man by Robert R. McCammon. And The Last Feast of Harlequin by Thomas Ligotti. Those are a lot of stories to read, but as I said, most of them are 10 to 12 pages long. I know The Last Feast of Harlequin is maybe 40 pages, but I think I can do a short story per day. And that gives me some days off of short stories if I want them. Now again, I have not selected anything for the 2000s and the 2010s, so I am wide open to suggestions. I hope you enjoyed this list of potential things that I'll be reading for Horror Mayhem, Decades of Dread 2025. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.